Hello, welcome to POL. It's Friday, December 8th. My name is Matt Thomas and this is Helen Zoss. And we're going to start the morning by looking into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
This conflict starts back in 1948 after the Arab-Israeli War, when the Holy Land was divided into three parts: the State of Israel, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. Hostility between the Israelis and the Palestinians started to break out, climaxing in the First Intifada in 1987. This was an uprising of the Palestinians living on the West Bank and Gaza against the Israeli government.
The Intifada was halted in 1993 with the signing of the Oslo Accords, which illustrated a plan for the Palestinians to govern themselves, with certain guidelines being put into place between the newly established Palestinian Authority and Israel's government. It was hopeful that this agreement would eventually lead to a two-state solution between the Israelis and the Palestinians. But unfortunately, this agreement didn't last long, and in 2000 there was a second, much more bloody Intifada due to the continuation of Palestinian grievances.
The current administrative body of Palestine, the Palestinian Authority, or the PA, is meant to oversee the health, internal security, education, and local government of Palestine. While originally viewed as a way of transitioning to statehood, the PA is not very trusted by Palestinians anymore.
The actions of Hamas and Fatah have further complicated the issue. These are generally referred to as factions by Palestinians, with the Fatah being founded in 1953 and Hamas being founded in 1987. Both these groups have participated in the PA. The Fatah is a nationalist organization and has often held positions of governmental power. And Hamas is an Islamist movement, and in 2006 it gained government control through the PA, leading to problems between Palestine and the international community.
The reason for this is because Hamas is seen as a terrorist group and is deemed as such by the United States. Since Hamas had control of the government, many efforts were made by the international community to isolate this group and overthrow it, but now it still maintains control of the Gaza Strip.
This occurred after a split in the PA where Hamas gained control. As of 2016, the PA has been nearly ineffective, especially as their relationship to the people has grown more and more distant as a cause of the split in authority.
Another body in Palestine is the Palestine Liberation Organization, or PLO. This has played a larger role in interacting with the international community, including negotiating with Israel.
While a symbol of peace and unity to many Palestinians, this organization has faded into the background and has been added as a part of the PA.
Today, there is fear of a third intifada as more and more acts of violence occur in Palestine. This new wave began in 2015 as the West Bank and Jerusalem saw more attacks. This came after it was nearly fully recognized that the peace process initiated in the 1990s was finished, despite no solution being reached.
As we sit in an impasse, questions of leadership and control plague Palestine and create a more desperate atmosphere. In terms of finding a solution, there have been several attempted peace talks and agreements, but each has ended in failure. Today we're looking into the roots behind this conflict, as well as the theories, the reasons why a solution has not been met, and the role of the international community.
Now we are going straight to the issue. Reporting to us from Ramallah, we have Lois Lane to tell us more. Thanks, Matt and Helen. I am currently in Ramallah, located in the central West Bank, which is about 6 miles from Jerusalem. This is the de facto administrative capital of the Palestinian National Authority, the interim government for Palestine. I have with me Dr. Mohammed Khalid, who is a part of the Palestinian National Authority as a Fatah member and is working in diplomacy toward a solution with the Israeli government. Now, I have noticed during my time here that there's been little attempt from the Israelis to solve this conflict.
You're right, Lois. That is because the conflict mostly directly impacts us Palestinians. The fighting that has been done so far overwhelmingly results in much more casualties from our side as opposed to the Israelis. The majority of Israeli life is removed from this conflict, leaving many Israeli people apathetic to the situation we're in at this time. Their lack of concern over this issue is directly correlated with the Israeli government, which at this moment seems very unwilling to make a move forward with the situation.
What solutions are or were currently on the table?
Well, as you may know, there are two main outcomes to this conflict: the one-state and the two-state solutions. These are exactly as they sound. The two-state solution would create two separate states, the state of Israel and the state of Palestine, while a one-state solution would bring these two together as one state. For a time, most people believed that a two-state solution would likely be agreed upon, but continued violence and disputes have caused Palestinian support for a two-state solution to wane.
Now, the United States is an ally to Israel. Does this add pressure to Palestinians to accept a peace deal that may not be very beneficial to them?
Certainly. In fact, recently, a White House official made a statement saying that the two-state solution is not the only solution available, even though the United States has pushed for a two-state solution for a long time. At the same time, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged the international community to go for a two-state solution. He said there was no alternative plan for resolving the conflict. We are afraid that Israel will continue its Jewish settlement activity in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, which is seen as illegal under international law and which the United States has not supported in the past. So yes, there's a lot of pressure on us to find a solution, but we are determined not to accept a solution that does not encompass our base requirements.
What are those base requirements?
Well, we would accept a deal that established Palestinian state borders on the lines from before 1967, allowing for a few changes possibly. Also, our capital would be in East Jerusalem, and Israel would withdraw forces from the West Bank and allow Palestinian prisoners to be released. Finally, our refugees would receive compensation and would be able to return to our state of Palestine. A majority of the international community supports these points, so we hope that if a deal is reached, we will have this included in the compromise.
Now, can you tell us about the border wall being built in the Gaza Strip? What is its purpose and what does this mean for Palestinians?
Israel has decided to build this concrete, sensor-equipped wall that is 6 meters high and dozens of meters deep as a countermeasure against Hamas, who have underground tunnels. If Hamas chose to go to war with this, then Israel would have ample reason to retaliate, which is part of the fear on a third intifada breaking out. This is an example of a security dilemma. By Israel building up its security and strength, Palestinians could feel threatened, leading to a provocation that spiraled into something so much more serious.
Okay, we are on our last question. How are natural resources and their availability playing a role in Palestine at this moment?
This is playing a fairly significant role as Israel and Palestine fight over water. Israel has much more control over the resources, meaning they have the ability to dictate how much we receive. This is an important tool for the Israelis. Being self-interested, they are allowing Israeli settlers much greater access to water, while lessening the amount Palestinians have access to. Until the costs of withholding water outweigh the costs this gives to Israel, it isn't likely that we'll see any change occur to get Palestine much more access to clean water.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Khalid. Now back to Matt and Helen in West Lafayette.
Thank you, Lois and Dr. Khalid. Now we're going to hear from some theorists on the issue. Joining us from New York, we have realist theorist Dr. Anderson and liberal theorist Dr. Watson. Thank you for being here with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Now, we have seen a variety of attempts over the past couple decades to reach a peace deal, from the Oslo Accords in 1993 to the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry organizing peace talks in 2013, but nothing has worked. The aim has shifted between talks of a one-state solution and a two-state solution, but we seem to be in a position where nothing is happening. Can you tell us why this impasse is occurring?
Yeah, that's a great question, Helen. To answer it, though, we first need to look at states within the international community, as well as how a state comes to be. To be a state, one must have a territory, a government, population, and recognition from the international community. Currently, Palestine has a territory, it has a government in form of the Palestinian Authority, it has a population, but what it is currently lacking is full recognition from the international community, specifically the United Nations.
And despite this, though, Palestine has been recognized by many states in Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Its main hindrance is that, as one of the 5 great powers, the United States has the veto in the UN. And since the U.S. will not agree to Palestinian statehood, it cannot be recognized formally in the UN as a state. The reason for this is due to the U.S.'s alliance with Israel.
And going off these last 2 points made by my colleague, we can start to answer your question on the lack of agreement between Israel and Palestine. We live in a system where there is no one power to dominate all other states. We call this anarchy. In our international system, we are anarchic. So in making decisions, states are going to choose their own actions based on what will benefit them most themselves, thus securing themselves against others in our anarchic system. In this case, for Israel, the decision is best for them to maintain an impasse, not to agree to a two-state or a one-state solution. The cost of agreeing to a two-state solution in which Palestine be its own state, separate of Israel, will outweigh the cost of maintaining the current situation. Benefits have been offered to Israel if it agreed to such a peace deal, such as upgraded relations with Europe, U.S. security guarantees, and increased financial and military aid. But none of these are as good enough to get Israel to agree to the deal, which would cost so much more in resources. Maintaining this current stalemate is Israel's best option until either a more attractive peace deal occurs or until maintaining the current situation becomes too costly. You mentioned the international community. Have they played a significant role in the issue?
The international community has certainly played a significant role in this situation. However, we cannot talk about the significance of the international community without first speaking of international organizations and their role in things. International organizations allow for states to experience repeated interactions with other states. This leads to fostering cooperation among states and to dissuade cheating because the frequent interactions between states calls for there to be a bit of trust. Otherwise, neither state would end up with a good solution to their issues. One organization that does this is the United Nations, the UN. This is an international governmental organization consisting of 193 member sovereign states. This is relevant because any state wishing to achieve statehood wants to be recognized by the UN as a state. While not a part of the UN, Palestine is a non-member observer state and also was admitted into the International Criminal Court. The international community plays an important role in giving Palestine the recognition it needs to officially become a state. While it has gained recognition from many other states, what is currently lacking is full admission to the UN, which will likely not happen until an agreement between Israel and Palestine is reached.
The reason for this is due to the veto power the United States holds within the UN. With Israel as an ally, the United States will not make any moves towards allowing Palestine statehood, despite the plethora of states that already recognize it. That being said, I disagree with my colleague. I do not believe that the international community, specifically international organizations, play a significant role in this conflict. As Dr. Watson already pointed out, there is little chance of Palestine entering the UN at this point. If we look to efforts made by Palestine and the international community, we'll find that little has been successful. Palestine attempted in 2015 to get FIFA, the governing body of world soccer, to suspend Israel until Palestinian statehood was recognized. But this failed. Other efforts by the international community to broker treaties has not been successful, showing that it is up to the states themselves to find solutions based on their own interests.
Great discussion. Now earlier, Matt and I were talking about the role Hamas had in this issue. Would you elaborate on the fact that Hamas has been determined to be a terrorist group? What are its end goals and how will it achieve them? How does this affect Palestine and its ability to move towards statehood? Yes, Hamas has been determined to be a terrorist group. This is because it is a non-state actor, using violence and the threat of violence to reach its goals, which is a political objective. This objective is to destroy Israel and to establish a Palestinian Islamic State. Ultimately, Hamas wants a regime change and a territorial change. To get this, Hamas has used both attrition and spoiling, both of which are strategies used by terrorist organizations. The aim of using attrition is to convince a government that the terrorist organization is strong and that it will continue to display this strength in violent methods in order to gain concessions from the target state. This was part of the influence for the Second Intifada in 2000. Hamas wanted to force the Israelis to withdraw from the Gaza Strip, and it worked. Because of this, these methods are likely to be tried again, adding more reason to fear a third Intifada.
Spoiling, on the other hand, is used when a peace deal seems likely, but does not coincide with the goals of the terrorist group. In this situation, the terrorist group will use terrorist attacks to convince one side or the other that the target state is unable to handle these attacks and may potentially not be trusted to make a peace deal. Hamas has made multiple attacks throughout the Oslo Accords, deepening the idea that the Palestinian government was incapable of handling the terrorist groups within the territory.
These strategies negatively affect Palestine's ability to gain statehood, but there are solutions to these actions. For example, in response to spoiling, a solution could be to expose vulnerabilities on both sides, so that trust is maintained. This was seen in the Israeli-Palestinian issue, when the Israelis had to relax control over occupied territories and the Palestinians had to disarm militant groups. So while the actions of Hamas has made it more difficult to achieve a solution, there is still progress attempting to be made. That is all we have time for. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Watson, Dr. Anderson.
After hearing all of this information today on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, we can see that in order to resolve this issue, a multitude of factors are involved.
The current impasse in finding a peace agreement must end by creating a situation that either allows Israel to benefit more from a solution than from the current situation, or that causes the costs of maintaining the impasse to outweigh the costs of finding a solution.
Also, steps need to be made in healing the distrust between the Israelis and the Palestinians, particularly in lack of trust in the current Palestinian governing authorities, including Hamas. Once more trust is built, steps can be taken to find a proper solution.
Thank you for joining us on POL this morning, and we hope you have a great week.